election, which is just 98 days away. And this is a critical election. It will determine who's going to run our city for the next 4 years. There's only one woman incumbent right now, so I hope my fellow women out there, you'll support a fellow woman Democrat running for city council. I need your support. If you can, I'm literally asking, go to votedillingham.com and you can support my campaign. Thank you. And this is Mark Niehaus, my campaign manager.
Hey, Mark.
Extraordinaire. He's great. Thank you.
Okay, and Mike.
Sunday is the anniversary of the bombing of Japan, and there's at 2 o'clock.
Stand up, Mike.
At 2 o'clock at Xavier, there's a film at Kennedy. 2 o'clock at Kennedy Auditorium Sunday. A film about that.
Monica.
I'm Monica Lira, Amberley Village. I wanted to welcome you all to the also Monday night version of this, that we meet at the Red Rose Pizzeria, 5915 Hamilton Avenue. The charge is $10 for the most bodacious, audacious pizza.
Great pizza.
Salad, and oh man, it's chocolate. She's covered in strawberries. Wonderful food and drink. Next speaker is Dean Gillespie with the Innocence Project. 11 years incarcerated before he was freed through this project. He's going to be giving a really, I'm sure, moving presentation. If you wouldn't mind joining us, we'd love to have you. August 21st, 6 to 8 p.m.
That's only 3 weeks away.
Thank you very much. Oh, and also if you need a sign, welcome neighbor, let me know.
Yeah, fix that.
Anybody else?
Who is the person who put up the sign and then got roses? Somebody put what?
Oh, that's right. Last week, I don't know if Jen was here. Hi, I'm Dave Hughes, keyboard wild. I have the pleasure of introducing a new candidate for trustee for Springfield Township.
Yay!
Chelsea has been very instrumental in getting in the preservation. It's been about 2 years now, hasn't it? Chelsea's been a tremendous help. You know, everything from the petition drive to the bumper stickers to the yard signs and et cetera. And when she decided to run, I was like, yeah. She will be one of 4 candidates who is running as a Democrat. The other 3 Republican. 2 of those are incumbents. One has been trustee for 16 years. It's time for a fresh face. And I'm proud to present Chelsea Rothschild.
Thank you. Go Chelsea.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Not really kind of covered everything that I was going to say. You failed to mention that the other 3 in the race are men, so that's not.
That helps.
Yeah.
We can't hear. We cannot hear.
I'm sorry, I don't use the microphone very much. Dave kind of covered everything I was going to say, but he did fail to mention the other 3 in the race are men, so that's another thing. I'm not quite as organized as Michelle yet. I just turned in my designation of treasurer reform today, so I should have a website and social media up soon. Thanks.
Go for it. The election is soon. 90, how many days?
98.
98 days. Leon.
Yes, I just wanted to let everybody know that 37 of you have been circulating petitions for redistricting.
Woohoo!
And we still have some more here if you want to sign up for some more petitions.
I will do a training today if you want to be trained.
There'll be a training today. You can, if you've got your petitions to turn in, you can turn them in today too. So I'm back here in the booth. And at first I didn't know what you were talking about when you said the person who put up the sign and got roses, but now I do because I'm that guy. So for those who didn't hear, it was really an amazing thing. It's one of the signs that says, exactly how does it go? It says something like, we're welcome to our neighborhood. Wherever you came from, we're happy you're here. Something like that, right? And then one day, one particularly hot day, I walked out of my house late in the afternoon, and my car was covered with a dozen white roses. Wow! And and they were beginning to wilt, but they recovered once they got into a vase, and there was a note with them that said, "Thank you for being such a wonderful neighbor. Your foreign neighbor," it was signed, "Your foreign neighbor." Wow. So this meant so much to somebody that somebody publicly said, "Welcome."
Thank you for welcoming us.
That they went out and got a dozen white roses. Amazing.
And they picked the right color.
Other announcements? Go for it. Well,
I'm Joe Salvato from Springdale. I'm wondering how many folks here are from the suburbs? Okay. I've been working with Springdale on aggregated energy. Aggregated energy is where your city council goes out and buys energy on behalf of all the citizens. And on Friday, and I work just with the mayor and the manager, the bidder, and one particular council member. And over a course of a couple of years, they just signed a contract for 3 years of green energy. That's a fairly easy one. I've done this in the Chicago area with consortiums, like 4 or 5 villages at a time, or 1 village at a time. There's different techniques. If anybody in the suburb, Cincinnati has aggregated renewable energy. If anybody wants to roll it out to their suburb, I would be glad to work with them. Like I say, there's different techniques. Sierra Club just came out with a package. National Sierra Club Organizing for Action has a package. So there's different techniques, but I'd be glad to work with anybody.
Just FYI, we have that in Springfield Township, and boy, does Duke bug us. They want us to go back to them. No way.
there was, yes.
Oh, Martha Stevens, just 2 quick things. Tomorrow at City Hall, at 2 o'clock, council will be discussing the conflict in Avondale between Children's Hospital and the Avondale community group. Very important, I think, because Children's is not doing quite the right thing by the homes, people who will be displaced by their new additions. So see what you think about it and maybe come to that meeting where there will be a vote.
Where is the meeting?
At City Hall.
City Hall.
There'll be a vote on whether to rezone the area, allowing children to put up huge structures that will take the place of people's homes there, and some of their streets will be closed. So that's one thing, and then just 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. What was the other thing? I'll think of it later.
2 o'clock, City Hall. We got that.
Senior moment.
Yes, we all have it. Anybody else?
Any other announcements? Are we ready? Today we have Laurie Briggs, and she's an attorney and insurance regulatory consultant. She's a volunteer speaker for the ACLU of Ohio. She can tell us more about how that's organized. And she has served on its board of directors since 2010 and is currently its treasurer. And I just need to tell you about how I got involved with this. I heard an ACL speaker at a meeting like this in Tucson, where I modeled this organization after a weekly democratic organization that meets weekly for 37 years in Tucson. And I have to tell you, when I told them that we were actually set up to go, I got a standing ovation. They were really proud. Anyway, so they have a thing which we may think about, which is a split the pot. And I won the split the pot. It's the only time I've ever won anything. I won $17, and it was $20 to join the ACLU. So I added $3 to my winnings at this meeting, and I joined the ACLU. And maybe after this meeting, you might be enticed to think about joining too. So here we go. Laurie Briggs of the American Civil Liberties Union.
Thank excited to be here. It is always fun to, is this, can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. It's always,
Right up on your
okay. It's always fun to come and speak on civil liberties because I have a confession to make. I am not one of those employed attorneys at the Civil Liberties Union that gets to go out and fight for justice every day. I have a desk job and work with insurance regulators, and it has nothing to do with civil liberties. And so this is my passion. This is what I get to do for fun and as a volunteer. So thank you all for giving me the opportunity today to interrupt my desk job and be here to talk about something that I care deeply about. And by virtue of you being here, I suspect you care deeply about too. Now, one disclaimer, I was so proud of myself. Liz told me that you don't have internet connection here, and I really wanted to play a couple of videos today because who wants to hear me drone on and on for 20 minutes or half an hour? So I was so proud of myself. I embedded several videos in my PowerPoint presentation and watch the tutorial on how to do that and how to get it to work without an internet connection. So you're my guinea pigs. I've not done this without an internet connection before, so hopefully it will work. Otherwise, you're stuck with me. So with that, what is our mission? It is to aid in maintaining and extending constitutional and other fundamental rights and liberties. We don't just want to maintain what we have, we want to extend civil liberties. And in doing so, our mission says we'll take all legitimate action in furtherance of that without political partisanship. I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about what that means later, but that's our mission. As a practical matter, I like to say, because that's first, our formal mission is kind of a mouthful, is that the ACLU works to preserve and extend individual liberties so that we can all live our lives free to express our own thoughts, practice our own religion, cast votes that are counted, and be subject to a fair and transparent judicial system and the rule of law. So, as I said, the ACLU is nonpartisan. We're not liberal, we're not conservative, we're not Democrat or Republican. We're willing to stand up for unpopular views when American freedoms are at stake. And our client is the Bill of Rights. So you may ask, how does that work and what are you talking about? Some of you who may have been involved with the ACLU for a number of years may remember that in earlier time we represented the rights of Nazis to march and to protest in Skokie. And I like to say that there's always someone who is mad at the ACLU, and sometimes it is people who normally would be aligned with us in terms of our values, because we do want to extend rights and freedoms to populations that have traditionally been denied. So religious minorities, individuals with disabilities, women, people of color. So people will say, how can you represent the rights of Nazis to march? And the reason is that we've learned through a long, hard history that the first target of government oppression is never the last, and that protecting the rights of people who have vile views, their rights to express those views, allows people with views that are simply dissenting, may not be popular with the government, but need to be heard, have those rights. So it is, it's a long history of really, as I said, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights being our client, and sometimes that takes us in places that we're representing unpopular views and unpopular minorities. So if you hear things about positions that the ACLU is taking, that you may say, well, gee, I thought that the ACLU was this progressive liberal organization. I hope one thing you walk away with is that that we always use the Constitution as our lodestar, and the Bill of Rights, and oftentimes those issues come up in particularly in First Amendment issues. An issue came up a few weeks ago here in Ohio, in Columbus, where an employee, a maintenance garage worker at the Columbus City Schools, posted some really vile things on the Pride Parade Facebook page, and his job was threatened because of that. And many people were upset with the ACLU because we said the government, a public school, should not be able to fire a worker who on his own time expressed views, however really offensive those views were. So that's just as a matter of educating you and their disclaimer or disclosure about who the ACLU is, and also to inoculate you. If you hear things like, why is the ACLU taking that view, chances are you can find the source of that position in the Bill of Rights and are concerned for protecting the most unpopular views. So we have a lot of issues. You can see we aren't a single issue organization. Everything from free speech to reproductive freedom to criminal justice to national security to drug policy. So we have a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak. So we've been around for a long time. We're coming up on our 100th anniversary in 1920. And you may be interested to know that among our founders was Helen Keller, Felix Frankfurter, Jane Addams, Crystal Eastman. And it's really interesting, especially given what is going on in American politics right now, to look back and think about what was going on when at the founding of the ACLU in 1920. This was just after World War I, and there was a lot of post-war hysteria and a lot of fear of the political views of immigrants. And has anybody heard of the Palmer raids? The Palmer raids, there was Attorney General Palmer, and he hired then 24-year-old Edgar Allan Hoover to head a new division of the Department of Justice that would go after immigrants with Bolshevik views. Everybody, this was the stirrings, the beginning of being afraid of communism. We've been around 100 years. We fought the Palmer raids then and sort of the hysteria over immigrants. And here we are 100 years later, almost fighting hysteria over immigrants. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. But the ACLU has been there. We fought the good fight for almost 100 years, and will, with your help and the help of people who care about civil liberties around the country, will hopefully be around 100 years from now. And hopefully that speaker who's standing here 100 years from now talking to a new group of civil libertarians won't be saying, Has anybody heard of Jeff Sessions and the immigrants and the Palmer raids? Hopefully we'll have moved on to new civil liberties issues and we'll have learned the lessons that we don't have to be hysterically afraid of immigrants. But I think that history is interesting. So here's a few of our national highlights. I mentioned the Palmer raids. We were one of the few organizations that practically stood alone in 1942 fighting the internment of Japanese Americans. In 1981, we took a major creationism in public school case, and then of course in the 2000s exposing torture. So we have been around. Now, I'm going to see, this is my first test of our video, we'll see if this works. We've got a video, it's our greatest hits in under 2 minutes, so we'll take you through 100 years of ACLU history. I assume you're clapping for my technological skill in getting that to work. I can tell I fit in nicely here. Yes, okay. So the way the ACLU is organized is we have the national ACLU, and that has legislative offices in DC and its main offices in New York. And then we have chapters in every state and in Puerto Rico, and I am with the Ohio chapter, which is the ACLU of Ohio, and that has actually been around since, it's not advancing. Okay, hang on. There you go. It's been around since about the start, 1921, because when Roger Baldwin was going around the country around 1920 looking for civil libertarians to form the ACLU with him, one of his stops was in Youngstown. And so Youngstown was one of the first hotbeds of civil libertarians, and from that start in 1921 came what is now the ACLU of Ohio. It's actually two separate nonprofit corporations, the ACLU of Ohio and the ACLU of Ohio Foundation, and the difference mainly is that the ACLU of Ohio supports grassroots organizing and lobbying efforts. So we have a Columbus office that is at the Ohio State Legislature most every day, and on a nonpartisan basis gives testimony about legislation. The idea of that is to stop bad laws before they start, because you can always sue later, but then you've already got a bad law in the books. So trying to educate legislators about the civil liberties implications of laws they're considering. When you become a member of the ACLU, you're becoming a member of this membership organization. That is not tax deductible, but we also have the foundation, which is a 501c3, and that is extra that you want to give, and that supports our education campaigns, public awareness, and our litigation. So when civil liberties violating laws do go into effect, when they are passed and rights are violated, donations to the foundation is what supports the litigation that takes those on in court. We in Ohio, and I think in other affiliates as well, but for about the last 5 to 6 years, we've really taken what we call an integrated advocacy approach. And so all the branches work together: legislative advocacy, communications, education to the public, working on public policy, and then when all those don't work, bring lawyers in. And so it's the three branches working together on a case-by-case basis. And a little later in the presentation, I'm going to give you some examples of where each of those areas are working locally in Ohio. So in terms of legislative advocacy and communications, as I said, we do nonpartisan testimony before the Ohio General Assembly, and we get our message out to the public and coordinate with other groups. Public policy and education, things like the Speakers Bureau. If any of you are interested in becoming an ACLU volunteer, that's how I got started volunteering for the ACLU before I was on the board. I was invited to join the Speakers Bureau, and they provided training, day-long training. There's lots of support, but you get to go out and do fun things like I am right now. There's also tons of education material on our website. We've got resource centers, know your rights materials. For those of you who engage in protests, we've got nice know your rights protest materials on our website. So go explore our website. There's lots of stuff out there that'll help you. So then, as I said, sometimes the lawyers get involved. We're actually the largest public interest law firm in the nation, but we're still David to the government's Goliath, because there are about 11,000 lawyers at the Department of Justice, and not to mention everywhere else in government. The ACLU has 300 litigators. So we're very fortunate that there are law firms around the country and lawyers who help us, who aren't actually employed by the ACLU. We obviously couldn't do it without them, but there is no end to the challenges and the drain on resources, and when you just see that difference in power, it really is amazing, and it impresses me that our litigators get done what they get done, because it really is a David and Goliath situation. So we're not legal aid. We don't take, we can't take cases for every individual who may need help or have a civil liberties violation. We try to take cases where we can make good law, hopefully, or overturn bad law. So we do so strategically, and where a number of people's rights might be involved. So if we have a representative case that will help a whole bunch of people. So it's more strategic litigation. So that's background on sort of who we are and how we're structured. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about what's hot right now. And I should say, we've been here, what, half an hour? Chances are, when I go out and check my phone, something else will be hot right now. So this is probably ancient history, because things keep happening. But I'm going to talk about three things that are going on in Ohio that I'm so proud of our staff and our attorneys in the the Ohio ACLU for doing this, and then one thing that's going on nationally, and this is just a sampler, there's a lot more. So the first one is excessive use of force against protesters. We filed suit against the city of Columbus just a few weeks ago, on July 12th. Remember the first week of the Trump presidency when he issued the executive order with the Muslim ban? And people came out in cities and towns around the nation to protest that and exercising their First Amendment rights to protest. And in Columbus, there was a peaceful protest, and many young people were there, and the police, some of the police who were patrolling the protest became aggressive with some of the peaceful protesters. And there's actually police video showing officers joking about who would get to spray specific protesters, like, you know, I got her. And they pepper sprayed at close range, right in the face. So you can imagine how that feels and how dangerous that is. And as I said, you know, a lot of these folks were young people, perhaps exercising their First Amendment rights for the first time. So it was an unfortunate decision by these police officers, and one that the ACLU thought needed to be addressed. So that case was just filed. One of the things, in addition, we're representing 3 individuals who were pepper sprayed. But one of the things that the ACLU does that I love is not only is this case asking for damages for these individuals, you know, which is important, but it's also asking for changes in how the police operate. And so we're forward-looking, and again, that gets into the public policy and what good can we do for future protesters with this lawsuit. So that's one thing that is new and exciting. Another thing that you may have read about in the Inquirer is that Jeff Sessions announced recently the formation of National Public Safety Partnership. And it's a program to aid 12 cities in fighting gang violence, drug trafficking, and violent crime. And Toledo and Cincinnati are 2 of those 12 cities. And they are selected to receive, quote, significant assistance. Now, this isn't money, but this is, well, it remains to be seen exactly how this help is going to be offered. But, you know, obviously, the ACLU cares about people's safety and wants the police to be able to maintain the rule of law. But we did send a letter to Mayor Cranley. I have a typo there. It's not Cranley, it's Cranley. Sorry about that. Citing the alarming changes at DOJ. That you know, some of the things that Attorney General Sessions has said give us pause as to whether this partnership is really going to be a step back, because Mr. Sessions is reviewing police consent decrees to make them more favorable to the police, supporting harsh penalties for drug possession, investing in private prisons, kind of reversing the decision of the previous administration on that, and you know, as we know, supporting harsh immigration policies. So all of these suggest to us that Cincinnati and Cincinnatians will not be well served by this partnership. And so one of the things we're doing, and this goes to kind of the public policy work of our integrated advocacy approach, that, you know, in the first case, with the Columbus Police, we're using litigation, bringing the lawyers to address that harm and to hopefully make public policy changes in the future. In this, it's a letter to the mayor saying, hey, think about this, reconsider this. You don't have to do this just because the federal government wants you to enter into this partnership. Is this really going to benefit Cincinnati? You know, and our concern is that the progress made in Cincinnati under the collaborative agreement will be reversed. The Hamilton County Jail just 2 months ago, the sheriff said that it's in a state of emergency because of overcrowding. So if your solution is crack down on, you know, throw everybody in jail, you know, we don't have a situation that can sustain that sort of dragnet style policing and really aggressive drug enforcement. It probably doesn't make us safer. It harms families. It pulls a lot of young people into the criminal justice system unnecessarily. So. My understanding is the department. Oh, yeah. Beth asked, how did Cincinnati get involved? Did they ask us or did we ask them? My understanding is that the Justice Department identified these 12 cities based on a variety of factors. One being where the Justice Department thought that there had been an increase in violent crime, and the other being cities where they thought that the city officials would be receptive to this. So I don't know if there was discussions before this announcement, but that's what I read in, I think, the Department of Justice press release on this. So I would be curious to know, and you know, we're all constituents. I would be curious to know from City Council, from Mayor Cranley, how did this come about, and are these concerns that were addressed in the ACLU letter, what is City Council's and the Mayor's response, reaction to that? How are they going to make sure that we're not dragged backwards? So the letter is on our website. Just go to Ohio ACLU. Yes?
Did you get a response from anyone?
You know, that's a good question. This is a fairly recent letter, and I don't think so. But I can find that out and let you know.
What was the question?
Oh, did we get a response? I will ask the people who wrote the letter and make sure. To my knowledge, no, but there may have been one I don't know about. So that's a local thing going on. And then the last, I'm sorry? Oh, I thought somebody was asking something. I'm just hearing voices now.
That was my voice, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's, well, good, now you've made me feel better. I wasn't just hearing voices. Yes, yes, I thought maybe I should have eaten lunch after all. So this is something we're just really thrilled with, is if you do nothing else on our website, go and find the ACLU of Ohio Transgender Spotlight page. We launched this earlier this year, and it's a series of 4 or 5 videos that featuring real transgender Ohioans talking directly about their lives, about their backgrounds, about their work, about discrimination they faced. They're wonderful short 2-3 minute videos. And the reason we did this, and this is really part of the education, that we know, and we know this from the marriage equality work, that visibility and legal protection are closely related. It's really hard to demonize and want to strip rights from someone who is real flesh and blood right in front of you. This is one of the things that we're doing to help promote that visibility, and in doing so, hopefully advance legal protections. So I've got another video. We'll see if it works.
Sorry, the volume's not great. It's scary, scared, trapped, insanely unfair. Doesn't like it. Discrimination policies, not even existent to say. Trans in the working world is a complicated situation. I applied for this job. I was very qualified for it. Explained that I was transgender. And wound up not being offered a job in favor of somebody who was substantially less qualified. And it's one of those things that really cannot do anything about because there are no protections.
I was looking online and finding tons of these beautiful apartments and houses that I really saw myself living in and actually having like a home for once instead of just being the place that I lived. And then when I met them in person and I realized, oh, she's transgender, you know, suddenly they just ghosted me and stopped responding.
Getting in a job has been very difficult in some situations. Despite having close to a decade in retail worker experience, I've not had the easiest time landing very basic entry-level jobs. You need to know more things. You need to be funnier. You need to be on point 100%. And not saying other people can be lazy, but people are like, this person is transgender and they know what they're doing. So there's always this, signifier that has to go with it. Like, you can't just be the person who does a good job.
Their employers could decide they don't want to have them around anymore and disguise it in some other minuscule broken rule just for the sake of convenience. And there's literally nothing stopping them from doing that. I probably went through 7 or 8 different landlords before I actually managed to find one that was okay with having me as a tenant, which seems ridiculous because I'm paying you money to let me live in a space. I don't know. I don't understand why people have such a tough time with it.
In a sick way, you learn that this is the way the world works and there's not much you can do about it because you just don't have those protections. So you just move on.
Non-discrimination protections are important to me because it opens the door for so many people to be who they truly are and so many other people to accept them. It's about being confident that I can land any job and be secure in that job.
That means that I can go to my job every day, make the money that I need to make in order to pay my bills and feed myself and clothe myself, and not have to worry about or not fear for my life or fear for my job.
Non-discrimination protections send a message that all of us, including those with trans stories or trans identities, are in the same class as everybody else.
Okay, you can see these online without the sound distortion. There's a whole series of them, so I encourage you to go and then share them on social media because it's a great way of starting the process of humanizing, and it's unfortunate we need to do that, but humanizing transgender people. So that's our short trip through 3 things that we're doing in Ohio right now. Now I just want to, before we wrap up, talk about one thing on the federal level that we're involved in, and that is a lawsuit involving the Election Integrity Commission. Before I talk a little bit about the lawsuit, here is, if it will play, another video that just kind of sets it up and talks about the background of this commission.
So high tech here.
I already signed that, by the way.
Thank you. Okay, so our lawsuit was filed under what's called the Federal Advisory Committee Act, and it basically says that when the federal government forms commissions or advisory committees, that those meetings have to be open to the public. There has to be notice of the meetings provided. You have to allow the public to attend in person, and then you have to make written records publicly available. None of these things were happening. This was a really secret process, and so we sued and asked for emergency injunctive relief. We sued on July 10th, and by the 14th, so within 4 days, the EIC had all of a sudden created a website, disclosed its agenda, pledged to make all documents for its upcoming July 19th meeting available, and it allowed limited in-person access to the media and then video access, remote access for members of the public. So they quickly partially complied with the demands of the lawsuit. And unfortunately, probably because of that partial compliance and because the standard for getting emergency relief is really high, the court denied the day before the first meeting. So this is, just really 10 days ago. The court denied emergency relief, but did leave the door open for future action. It says, look, this law does apply to this commission, and the ACLU can come back. So we're obviously keeping an eye on that. We're going to continue to demand access, continue to demand records, as well as talking to the public and to public officials about the fact that that there's no evidence of in-person voter fraud, that many more people are going to be disfranchised by this effort, people who have legitimate rights to vote, than the occasional person who may be voting inappropriately. So we'll continue to monitor this very closely, but unfortunately there's already been kind of a negative outcome from the court court itself, although just filing the lawsuit did pressure the commission into making public disclosures that it otherwise had not made. So it was worthwhile in that regard. So how can you get involved? There are a number of action alerts and ways to contact your state and federal legislator. If you sign up on our website for action alerts, those will come to your email, or follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Those will come to you, so you can be kept up to speed. You can volunteer. You have to be a member to volunteer. But like I said, you know, becoming a member of the Speakers Bureau, it's loads of fun. So I highly recommend you making that commitment. Donations are obviously always welcome. That's what fuels our efforts. And then the basic way is just become a member if you're not, and sustain that membership. And then you get to say that you're a card-carrying member of the ACLU, which, you know, you'll actually get sent a real card. So those are all ways to get involved. But I encourage you to explore our website, ACLU of Ohio. It's chock full of information and fun videos. So now I am just going to play you one last little clip to hopefully will leave you inspired, and then we'll open it up for questions.
The ACLU calls it policing for profit.
With the ACLU, the City of Colorado Springs admits its debtor prison practices were unfair.
The Supreme Court today ruled that abortion is completely a private matter.
We are both thrilled beyond belief that we can finally express our love. I want to thank the ACLU for representing us.
Edward Snowden's legal advisor, he's the director of the Speech, Privacy, and Technology Project of the American Civil Liberties Union.
At long last, the matter has come to a head. The Supreme Court decision putting an end to segregation in the public schools.
Excellent. So now you're all inspired and ready to get to work for civil liberties. I will, I thank you for your attention and open it up to any questions anybody has. Yes, sir.
There's an article on the bar over there about voter purging that I got out of the New York Times. Some of you might want to see. This might be slightly off, but is there any hope for us getting rid of the executions in Ohio? We have 27 scheduled.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I mean, I think it is tragic, and it's something that the ACLU has fought for a long time and will continue to do so. But the courts have generally been very permissive to states, and I think it comes down to it's a political matter. You have elected officials who want to be seen to be tough on crime. I think this is where we're probably not going to get wins in the courts or the legislature until we get wins in the court of public opinion. So this is a case where public policy, advocacy, where we all who care about criminal justice reform and care about what executing another human being does to our collective consciousness as Ohioans, as Americans,
who care about the unfair enforcement that, it's disproportionately people of color who are executed, can just have conversations. And I don't want to say there's no hope, but I think it happens in the hearts and minds of the public, and then the legislation and the politicians and the courts will follow that.
Okay, I just wanted to ask about something that wasn't mentioned in your presentation or in the video, and that is, of course, Citizens United. I'm going to quote from Bert Newborn, who's a constitutional scholar, and he says that the campaign finance mess rests on 3 erroneous arguments the ACLU advanced in the 1976 decision Buckley versus Vallejo. If you remember, that's the one that said money is speech. Number 1, that spending unlimited amounts of money in an electoral campaign is pure speech, entitled to the highest level of First Amendment protection. 2, that any attempt to equalize political power by limiting massive electoral spending by the super rich is flatly unconstitutional. And 3, that independent expenditures on behalf of a candidate, as opposed to contributions to the candidate, are incapable of corrupting the democratic process. You really think that's true? Well, and he says that the corrosive effects on democracy of uncontrolled campaign spending became increasingly clear, and he joined several former ACLU leaders, including Mort Halperin, in opposing the organization's campaign finance position. Now, how do you feel about Citizens United, and do you know anything about how the debate went on as to how they could possibly be in favor of Citizens United?
Yeah, well, I will tell you that I personally am the wrong person to try to defend that position as a substantive matter, because I personally happen to disagree, unfortunately, the ACLU allows for dissent and dissenting voices, so that's my dissenting voice. I'm not a constitutional law scholar, but it is something that troubles me. So, as a substantive matter, I'm not even going to attempt to defend it, because I'd be being disingenuous, honestly. But what I will say is that this is one of those things that I talked about at the beginning, that sometimes the ACLU takes free speech positions that are really challenging. And I admire, even when I disagree with where the ACLU comes out on certain things, I admire to my core that there is an organization that basically takes no prisoners when it comes to free speech rights, and
Expensive speech. People can't afford.
And so it's it's a challenging position. There's a lot of disagreement, I think, among ACLU members, and even probably within the ACLU. And I don't know where it goes in the future, but I think that the First Amendment bedrock principles sometimes takes the ACLU to places that are challenging, and all I can say is they were consistent in those arguments with their First Amendment principles, and I admire that even when I disagree.
If it's of any help, I served on the ACLU of Ohio board for several years. And I read those position papers too, and they were a little hard to figure out, since the entire left is pretty much united against Citizens United. But I mean, one of the things they explained is that Citizens United as a corporation wasn't a mega Exxon corporation, despite it being kind of on the right, or quite on the right. It was a not-for-profit, and restricting its ability to express itself with money does the same thing to the ACLU, and it does it to Planned Parenthood, and it does it to lots of other nonprofit organizations. That was one of the reasons they were in support of.
Yeah, that's a good point. And again, we're not a if we're not going to make a content distinction on speech. So the ACLU as an organization will value the speech of the right as well as the speech of the left. So that just that content is kind of irrelevant. But I understand that that's hard to take sometimes.
Following sort of the same theme, how are decisions made, which cases they select?
Yeah, well, I can't speak to really at the national, how that is made at, the state level, our affiliate. We look at a number of factors. One would be is this a real civil liberties issue? Sometimes it's hard to tell what's a civil liberties issue. Because there are really good causes and really outrageous violations of norms and bad behavior of public officials that might not be a civil liberties issue. So first we look, is this a civil liberties issue? Then we'd say, can we make a real difference here? Do we have the potential? Or are we pretty much guaranteed to make bad law because there's no way the courts are going to buy this, because the last thing we want to do is make bad law. So, we might not take a case that we really believe in, but we don't want to make things worse. And then we look at resources. Do we have the resources to take this? Sometimes it's heartbreaking that you really want to do something and you don't have the resources there to do it, either human resources or financial resources. So, there's a lot of facts and circumstances. There's no real, magic to it, but I think that we try to make the best decisions we can.
Over there.
I have some concerns about what I see as a conflict between the First Amendment and the 14th. If money is speech, that seems to fly in the face of equal protection, because money is clearly not equally distributed among us. And so it's a clear, I don't see how the ACLU can come down on the first, on those two, because in fact the 14th Amendment is what you guys usually push. Equal protection is.
Yeah.
So I have trouble reconciling that.
And that is I think an interesting and valid argument to make. One of the things that is challenging, and you've given an example of that, but we often have conflicts or perceived conflicts among different amendments. For example, the ACLU is strongly supportive of a woman's right to choose. The ACLU is strongly supportive of protester rights. So what do we do about laws that put wide buffer zones around Planned Parenthood clinics? On the one hand, we support a woman's right to choose, and we don't want the state to interfere with that, the government to interfere with that. On the other hand, we support protesters, even protesters who we might think are misguided, and we don't want precedent to say they can't stand on a public sidewalk and hold their signs. So we take a nuanced view, and it's really hard in the moment to know how to balance those. And I don't know that we always get it right. Many people would say, no matter which way we go, we haven't threaded the needle right. All I can say is that, I certainly am aware of that. I think it's challenging. And what I hope you'll go away with is the sense that it is challenging. and it's a balancing act, and real humans who are fallible are trying to make those decisions in real time. And the good news is that the ACLU welcomes dissenters. We always welcome dissenters. So you don't have to agree on every single point of the ACLU, even to be in a leadership position. You know, when I was considering taking a board position, you know, I was asked, is there anything you really disagree with the ACLU about? And I was made clear that, you know, it wasn't necessarily a deal breaker that we're allowed to have dissenting voices, even if there are one or two issues that we said, you know, I would have gone a different way, I would have made a different judgment. So that's all I can say about that. But I see your point.
Wait a minute.
I think about the change from where news was basically a nonprofit organization prior to cable news. And since cable arrived and it became a for-profit industry, the news has been distorted. Journalism should be free. It should be, you know, it should be something that all of us can take. That's why, for example, BBC is more something I would attend to, because there's no money involved in the whole business. That's why I really agree with this woman here. Really, speech now is bought. Speech is bought. And the truth, we can't find the truth. It's bought, pure and simple. And I don't know where this is going to go. You know, it's distortion all the way around.
Last question.
Oh, may I ask, do you know an ACLU staff named Caitlin Hill? Do you know her?
No, is she with the
Okay.
Ohio ACLU?
I don't know. She wrote a long editorial for the Inquirer about a month ago about bond bail.
Oh, yeah,
You
okay,
know?
but it's not, that isn't
That's not the right
the name.
Okay.
And I'm blinking, she's one of our staff attorneys.
Okay.
I thought it was Elizabeth Bonham, but
No, Caitlin, I'm pretty sure. I thought, well, nevertheless, here's my complaint. I loved what she wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been interested in prison matters for a long time. And so she gave an email.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to contact her.
Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you, blah, 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 and share a few things. Well, the email didn't work. I couldn't send that email. So then I got on the ACLU site and tried to contact somebody and didn't succeed that way either. So I don't like that. I seldom want to talk to ACLU, but when I do, I hope it's possible.
Right. I'm sorry that happened. Why don't I give you my email address that works, and I will make sure to get your email into the right hands, okay?
I'm going to try and make this the last question, if that's okay.
Okay, go for it, William.
Hate speech. I wanted to know where ACLU comes down on hate speech, and I know from experience that there's more than one ACLU. There can be a local ACLU, state ACLU, national ACLU, and they can have different opinions. Is there a general feeling about hate speech at the state level or at the national level?
Thanks for that. There's a lot of information on this on our website, a lot of blog posts about it, both the national and the state, that I'd encourage you to get into. I gave a presentation to a church group about hate speech just about 6 months ago, so it's something that's fairly fresh in my mind, although I can forget things after 6 minutes, much less 6 months, so I'm reaching back. But I think that this is again one of the things that we, obviously speech that is like a true threat, that violates people's rights because it threatens violence. Those kinds of things the ACLU would say are not allowed by the First Amendment. But just hateful speech, yeah, unfortunately, it's allowed by the First Amendment, and it gets back to the idea that there's no good way of oppressing or suppressing hateful speech. When we start looking at the content of speech, there's no good way of suppressing that. Also suppressing your rights to protest against Citizen United, or your rights to protest the hate mongers. You can't get there from here. So in protecting hateful speech, we also protect speech that isn't hateful, because there are times that the government, depending on who's in government, they may say the hate speech is fine, but your acts of protest aren't. So the one thing, though, that I said to this group that I'll close on when I spoke on hate speech a few months ago, and that is one thing that I think is really important for civil libertarians to remember, is that while hate speech is permitted by the Constitution and should be supported by civil libertarians, we have to be very humble in realizing that the costs of that speech are not borne equally. I am a privileged white woman living in a safe community. Nobody hurls insults at me. I get the benefits of the ACLU positions on speech and defense of free speech. I do not bear those costs. People of color bear those costs disproportionately. Transgender people bear that cost. There are a whole host, Muslims in today's society bear that cost. So I think we need to be very aware that I need to be aware and remind myself that I do not bear those costs, so I have a responsibility to reach out and be an ally and help and support to those communities, because they're disproportionately bearing the cost of our freedoms.
Thank you.
If you have some more, I'm going to ask that if you have special questions that you stay at the end.
Actually, she took the words right out of my mouth. I'm going to reinforce that because it's important, I think, for people of color in particular, that the point you raised is really important. It's important for our left allies to understand that, because a lot of times the backlash against the so-called attack on free speech is coming from progressives who are progressive whites, who take umbrage at what black activists do on campus to defend their rights and to counter a lot of the hate speech. I think progressives have a special responsibility to bring that understanding that democracy, this is part of the messiness of democracy, is that we don't have a level playing field, right? There's a presumption sometimes that there's a level playing field. The whole money question in the elections. Well, I don't have the kind of money the Koch brothers have. We can't possibly have equal speech. And so, it's just really important to realize that, when powerful people use hate speech, it's not the same as when less powerful people use it. Even when a white person feels insulted by a black person, it has different resonance, it has different effect because of different power dynamics in society. So I think that, those of us on the left, I think white people on the progressive side need to simultaneously defend that free speech, which I actually defend vociferously. but also to bring that understanding that we have a special obligation to defend those people who are victims of that hate speech.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions, everyone. And although I don't agree with some of the hate speech defense, I'm still happy to be a card-carrying member of the ACLU. Thank you so much for coming. You've been wonderful. I really appreciate you guys. Great presentation.
I'd like to mention the food here. If you would like to take some food with you, it'll get thrown away if you